I said, we're going to do it the way they used to make them. We're going to build everything. We're going to loom the fabrics. We're going to build the sets. We're going to make the goddamn ship the full size. I said, and we're going to go in a blaze of glory that hopefully the bonfire will be seen by every guild and say, we can do that. Fuck the volumetric LED screen.
Now, run.
When did you start thinking about bringing Frankenstein to the screen here?
Really?
Yeah.
50 years? I mean, I was 7 when I saw the first movie. It was a Sunday. We went to church at 8 a.m. because my dad wanted it over really quick. He was that kind of Catholic. And then I saw the film for the first time, the James Whale, on Channel 6 in Guadalajara. And I finally understood religion. When I saw Boris Karloff, I said, that's what my grandma gets all bothered about when she talks about the Messiah. That's the Messiah, you know? And I understood the resurrection of the flesh, the Immaculate Conception, stigmata, ecstasy, and I sort of became identified with it. I said, that's how I feel at age 7. And, you know, it made no sense before. And then at age 11, I read the novel. And I said, that was not the movie I saw. And the questions are very different in the novel. The questions are more urgent. And the questions are speak to my soul. And by then I was a Super 8 filmmaker, so I said, I'll make it.
And you did.
And I did. It took, we've been on and off over 20 years. A lot of the people that you see here started working with me in 1996. And we knew we were going to do this movie together. We rehearsed things that we were going to try. And, you know, we knew we wanted to make it the last of the Mohicans. I said, we're going to do it the way they used to make them. We're going to build everything. We're going to loom the fabrics. We're going to build the sets. We're going to make the goddamn ship the full size. We're going to do this. I said, and we're going to go in a blaze of glory that hopefully the bonfire will be seen by every guild and say, we can do that. Fuck the volumetric LED screen. Let's go to the frozen north. Let's make everything humans for humans.
It's unbelievable. I have a list. I have a list here of every kind of statistic on this. 3,178 labor days to build the ship, 2,830 labor days to build the lab, 1,200 labor days to build the tower exterior, on and on. 68 unique costumes, 54 prosthetic silicone pieces to create the creature. Prosthetics applied 50 times, sometimes for 10 hours for one.
Is there anyone from SAG here?
Let's talk about your cast, first of all, because they're sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac, a fantastic Victor Frankenstein.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
It's almost like a rock star or something in some scenes here. You know, you're like a conductor here.
Yeah, we spoke about that. Guillermo said don't think of him as a scientist or the classic idea of a scientist. He's an artist, especially when we see him at that moment when has all his ideas and he's so sure, and so he needs to move like that. He needs to command the space. You know, think about Mick Jagger. And then when I went and put on Kate Hawley's incredible costumes, you know, I was like, oh, and a little bit of Prince too in there, and a little Jimi Hendrix in there, and you know, it was just really exciting because it just made him, you know, he's the modern Prometheus. He's a rebel. He's punk rock, and there's this kind of spirit of defiance that you just see, you know, get corrupted and corrupted.
Well, you definitely pulled it off. And I love your scenes, too, here with Jacob. Jacob, you're sensational in a role that is not easy to play. Can you talk about this from an actor's point of view of how you approached it?
Yeah. I think the first and sort of most important thing in the creature is the reason the story is so relatable and has endured so long is because there's a duality in it, and we all have that inside of us, like that innocence and that rage and that sadness, and then the world tells us who we are and what we believe in and how we look, and And again, the little thing inside you slowly gets pushed deeper and deeper and deeper down. And I think the main thing was kind of finding that in myself, that person that you are. I've said it like a million times now, but I can't hide on that screen. You know what I mean? In that character, you can't hide. So, like, I'm hiding now with this microphone and these sunglasses and, and
Mustache.
and the mustache. You can't tell. No, but you can't and you shouldn't hide on screen. And the character that was a fusion of Mary Shelley's biography and Guillermo's biography, the character that was in the screenplay gave me the opportunity to not have to hide, to explore and try to understand what was sort of my absolute truth. And then on top of that, there's all the boring, standing in front of a mirror and being like, no, not that, maybe like this. There's a lot of that kind of, the acting that goes on top of it. But the truth is the character, the core of who it was, exists in everybody. And Guillermo pinpointed that with what he wrote in the screenplay.
Stan Laustsen, you have worked with a few times, and he is
Not enough.
Not enough. The cinematographer. So, what was your big challenge here in terms of lighting, the lab, the whole thing? It's so beautifully gothic, Dan.
When Guillermo and me talk about the movie in the beginning, we want to do a classic movie, but shot in a very modern way. That means like a very strong color palette together with Kate and Tamara and the whole gang of like people, and then we talked about moving the camera a lot and shooting large formats. So we want to get this classic look in, but a modern way. So we shot everything like really wide angles. So we was in with the actors, in with the drama. The reason we could do that because we shot large formats. So when you're coming into a close-ups, it's not distorting too much. And because we are shooting so wide angle, we want to have all the lights outside the set. So we, Tamara made these huge and fantastic sets, but we didn't want to have we want to see everything. So that's the reason we have all the lights outside. So the windows are kind of a gobos for the drama of the light. That was like we talked about. And of course, the whole color palette was coming into costumes and sets. And we did a lot of discussions about that. But when you're working with Guillermo, he has these very strong ideas about how the movie should look. And everybody's working that way to make the drama stronger.
So, Tamara, what was the big challenge in pulling this off, though?
There were so many challenges. I think the lab had so many moving parts. The ship, which was fully built on a giant gimbal, had many moving parts. The challenge of doing something operatic for Guillermo, just that big scope that we wanted. And the challenge of making everything so handmade. And, we were using post and beam structures to build the mill house. We were using, old wood and real moss to give texture to the set. So I think, everything was a challenge because you're just trying to achieve an excellent vision.
And you worked extremely closely with Kate, right? On the costumes. You were like sisters almost by the time this.
Annoyingly took years. We hit it off like right away, and it was great. Our color sensitivities, we established this color palette, and it was amazing. You talk about it, Kate.
Yeah. What she said. No, but it's all a collaboration. That's the strength of working under Guillermo and his vision. So we're also aware of what every other department's doing. Whatever I do affects what Tamara is doing. And we learn to look and echo. There's a lot of mirroring in the language through the themes that Guillermo's written in the text, but also what we do within each other's work and how we reflect that. And that, in turn, follows through to each of our departments. Within my workroom, within the dye departments, the textiles, there's another alchemy there, and everyone's aware of the language that we're all trying to create. So everyone can be informed and support and understand the language.
Mike, the creature design, as we've talked about here, is... And it's not, for those who think Frankenstein, they think of, bolts and all the standard thing. This is not that at all, and this is so elaborate. I mentioned some of the things that go into the prosthetics, but talk about this.
Guillermo and I decided that we wanted to make sure this creature looked like he stepped out of the 1800s. So we looked at techniques that they use then, phonology heads and stuff just like that, you see, and we wanted it to be like a marble statue because, as Guillermo says, Frankenstein was trying to make the best thing he could make, the best man he could make. It was people's perception of it being a creature or a monster that became that title, that mantle. But yeah, we just really wanted it to look like it was vintage. And what we didn't want is, a lot of these creatures can look like road accidents have been stitched back together and repaired. We wanted to walk in the room and say, no, this thing has been planned. Someone made a pattern here. Someone almost color-coded this thing to bring it to life. And so it had a lot of geometric shapes and stuff that we put in there. It was basically, again, the phenology head from the, bygone times, and we fed it down into the whole body. So you saw these lines and these anatomy on the outside of his body, which I thought just made him, statuesque and somewhat regal.
Amazing work all around here. Thank you so much for coming out and talking about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, too.